This is the Plain English Real Estate Show with your host, Rowena Patton, a show that focuses on the real estate market in terms you can easily understand. Call Rowena now. The number is 240-9962 or 1-800-570-9962. Now here's the English girl in the mountains, the agent that I would trust, Rowena Patton.
See, I'm live and I'm your roving traffic reporter today.
Well, what is the traffic like?
Oh my gosh, I am live, right? I am your roving traffic reporter today. I didn't know we were live there. Good morning, everybody. Rowena Patton here, All-Star Powerhouse broker by EXP, and this is the Real Estate News Radio Show. And I'm out and about today checking on the traffic for you, which means that if you are taking 26 anytime soon, don't, especially if you're going south. It's all been closed off. There is a multi-car pileup, which of course means the other lane is also very slow because everybody's watching all of the action. It's completely closed down. So watch out for that, and I will be there in the studio with you in about 3 minutes. What do we call that, Randy? Coming in hot.
Coming in hot. There you go. So traffic.
I'm trying not to speed.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're stuck in traffic. So you're talking I-26 towards Charleston is closed?
No, towards Asheville. Towards Hendersonville.
Gotcha.
It's closed.
I-26
So
eastbound.
I call it north and south because to me, if it goes up or down, it's north or south. And I can never remember whether it's west or east. So there you go.
I hear somebody in the car with you.
That's who we call BB. I always nickname my
BB.
My satellite. Yeah, BB. I can't.
BB.
The first word is bossy, and the other one is something I probably shouldn't say on the radio. Female dog.
Okay, well, we're looking forward to seeing you in the studio here. And what's the topic? I got tagged on a Facebook post about the topic for today. Tell us more.
It is 1031 exchange. 1031 exchange is how you exchange real estate tax deferred. Now, if you're in your primary, and, everybody's different, so it's different strategies for everybody. But if you're in your primary residence and you've owned it for 2 years, chances are you can take that $500,000 profit that you might make. A lot of people have been in the houses for a long time and have a lot of equity, and you can take that tax-free. However, if you're an investor or your CPA says it's a good idea maybe to turn your home into an investment property, which of course you can, then it can be a very good idea to go ahead and do a 1031 exchange. Or
okay, I believe that our
and like kind is just real estate. So it's any kind of real estate for any kind of real estate. And he's going to explain that to us today. I'm very excited for him to call in and go through what a 1031 is all about. And, of course, any of your other questions. And you can give us a call at 828-240-9962.
Now, we dropped a call on we dropped your call there just as you were telling us who the guest is going to be, and he's going to be calling in.
His name is Lonnie, and he's from the 1031 exchange. It's a specialist company that handles them. It doesn't matter where your 1031 exchange company is. Transaction, so you have to use a specialist for it. And he's going to go through what the costs are and all those kind of things.
Sounds great. And Ro has arrived. You will notice the difference in her voice now.
Ooh, do I sound better now?
Much better.
Yep, I made it. And it did occur to me this morning that, life throws you all kinds of things. And it's easy to get down and out and feel grumpy. And I felt that coming on this morning as I was sitting on 26. Oh,
I came into work and I hear the hum of diesel generators in the parking lot, and I'm saying, oh, this ought to be interesting. We're in a dark studio, but everything's working.
Because of all the weather, I'm sure.
The weather, yeah, and the winds are about to pick up. There's a high wind warning in effect for Buncombe County till overnight tonight. We're expecting some 30, 40, and 50-mile-per-hour winds, even higher up on the ridge tops. But, yes, we are without power here in West Buncombe, West Asheville. and on diesel power, and I love to communicate and do radio at times like this because
it's fun.
Fun.
It is fun. And just so you all know, because we have people listening all around the country. We've got people in England, in Germany, Australia even. I don't know how they do it in their time zone, but hey, here you go. So we are not in a tiny little podunk country studio here by any means. There are a number of stations that go out from here. The equipment is incredible. We're on, how many acres, Randy?
65 acres.
65 acres in Asheville, all just open field with the towers in and everything. So, you know, for power to go down here, that's quite something.
Yeah, and I let my superiors know that the generators are running and we're on the air, and we've got, what did I say? I said we've got internet and a coffee pot, and we are ready to go.
And me on the phone.
And then Ro coming in hot on the phone, yeah.
Yeah, and and it really made me think as I was sitting there going, what on earth is going on that, you know, you only have so much control of so many things.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
It could have thrown my day. But it didn't. I thought, I got on with Randy on the phone. He's like, oh, I'll pipe you in on the phone, and we're all good to go. So we're just waiting for our guest to call in now about 10:15. We delayed it just a little bit so that you could actually get to hear him. Maybe we should take a quick break while we wait for him to get on, Randy. What do you think about that?
Sounds like a plan.
I know you won't be ready for a minute, but that's okay.
I'm good.
We're by the seats of the pants today, but that's all good.
We'll be right back.
From the 570 Weather Center, this is your Weather Channel forecast.
A high wind warning is in effect until midnight, with some of the gusts out of the west and southwest potentially hitting 50 or even 60 miles per hour. Rain's going to exit this afternoon behind a front as the high gets close to 74. Some gusty winds tonight. A clearing trend will take place, and it will get cooler with an overnight low down to 36. Wrapping up the weekend on Sunday, plenty of sun tomorrow and windy with a high of 66. Then a slight chance for a shower on Monday with a high near 67. I'm Jeff Marr from the Weather Channel.
Hi, this is Rick, and we sold our home with Rowena Patton at All-Star Powerhouse. We didn't really want to move, but needed to for my job. Our first realtor didn't listen, didn't care, didn't try. Not a single showing in 2 months. A friend recommended Rowena. She saw the hard work we'd put into the home, what it meant to us, and what it could mean to someone else. Next thing you know, it's sold. If you need to get your home sold and not just listed, you need to talk with Rowena Patton. Give her a call at 828-333-4483.
Don't let real estate pass you by with All-Star Powerhouse.
Rowena Patton here at All-Star Powerhouse. Sell it now. Don't wait. Call me at 828-333-4483.
Don't let real estate pass you by with All-Star Powerhouse.
This is the Plain English Real Estate Show with Rowena Patton on News Radio 570 WWNC.
And here I am, I'm back. Randy, I don't have my headphones on. Oh my gosh, we've got Lonnie calling in just a second from California. Here we are in our studio where the power has been down. We have Lonnie calling in from California, me stuck on 26. It's a morning. It really is a morning.
I feel like I'm playing whack-a-mole over
I
here.
know, right? Lonnie, good morning. How are you?
Hey, good morning. How are things in North Carolina this morning?
Well, a little windy, actually. A little rainy, a little stormy. Accidents on the road coming in. We've got, what's the wind tonight, Randy?
High wind warning. We're expecting 40, 50 mile per hour winds here.
Whoa.
Especially up in the higher mountains.
Nothing like the devastation we've seen in the Midlands.
No, it's the same
gosh.
storm system, which is a lot of energy, and it did wreak havoc in Arkansas and
Little Rock.
Yeah.
Lonnie,
We sent that to you from California. So we had
devil you.
We got the mountains protecting us, though. Yeah.
So, Lonnie, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about your company, a little bit about your company.
Sure. Lonnie Nielsen, 1031 Pros. We, day to day are in the 1031 business. We work as a qualified intermediary and have been doing so for 30 years, 18,000 exchanges. So
wow.
We've seen a few come and go. Yeah,
You've done a few just there.
Fun business to be in. Yeah, fun business to be in.
So we have people listening not only around the country, but also in other countries as well. I'm guessing this only works in the U.S., am I correct?
Well, it is. If you're selling investment property in the United States, it does require that you replace your investment properties with other properties inside the United States or in Guam and the U.S. Virgin Islands. It also works. But if you are a U.S. citizen and selling investment property outside the United States, you can also exchange for other property outside the United States that's held for investment. You can't bring the money back in, but you can also make a like-kind exchange on properties. We have done some transactions in India, France, other countries too, for U.S. citizens that would trigger some capital gains if they sold.
Wow, that's really interesting to know. So you can shift your money around into different investments. So the biggest question we get, Lonnie, because a lot of people are sitting at home, they don't know anything about 1031 tax deferred exchange. It's where you defer the taxes on the profit. But tell us first about what we mean by like-kind exchange. Can it be any kind of real estate? Can it be your primary home? Does it have to be an investment?
Sure.
Can you make your primary investment?
Sure.
All that good stuff.
Sure. Any real estate that is held for investment purposes qualifies. And so pretty much anything that isn't your primary residence. Your primary residence comes under Section 121 of the Internal Revenue Code, where you have an exclusion. But the 1031 exchange applies to any real estate that's held for investment purposes. And so, if someone's looking to maneuver on a piece of investment property, it's always prudent to talk to their CPA and kind of get a scope of what their capital gains taxes would be, knowing that if they use a 1031 exchange, they could defer those taxes by acquiring other real estate that's held for investment. So it's beneficial to keep those dollars that you would pay in taxes and use those to your benefit to move them in and buy more or greater properties versus sell, pay the taxes, and then reinvest. That just doesn't make sense.
Got it. Okay. So tell us about a primary. Is there a way to make your primary home an investment home?
Well, if you decided to go that route, and there's no set time period, but if you converted it to an investment property and rented it out for a year and took depreciation on the property, then you could probably go with the 1031 exchange. But also on your primary residence, if you've used it 2 out of the last 5 years, you could take a look and see, because you can exclude, if you're a couple, up to $500,000 of your gain on a primary residence. So if you converted it to investment property and you'd look back 5 years, it would make sense to use the 1031 exchange if there's more gain than $500,000. But if you are $500,000 or less, you could still use the primary residence exclusion. So it kind of depends on how much gain you have and what your intent is, because you have to, if you're doing like exchange, you have to buy another piece of real estate that's held for investment. And sometimes that isn't the plan. They want to buy another primary. Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah. So I'm thinking for those people, as we go more into a flat market right now, the people that I'm seeing a lot more expired listings, for example, where those people really want to move and be by the grandkids or be by the parents, or, whatever reason they're moving for, maybe relocating for a job, that will think about turning that property into an investment property. In other words, renting it out.
Right. And if you're still within that 5-year time period, you can kind of look and see, does the 1031 benefit me most, or would, using my exclusion under Section 121 on my primary residence, and see kind of which works. Because to be honest, if you can work with the primary exclusion, you can take the money and reinvest as you desire.
Yes.
With the 1031 exchange, obviously, as we're going to get into,
limited.
You have 45 days to identify another property. You have to acquire and complete your exchange within 180 days. And so you're a little more pigeonholed into, I have to use that money. So sometimes it's if they're looking back and they can use the primary residence exclusion, it gives them a little more wiggle room and kind of alternative.
Absolutely. And that's, of course, $250,000 if you're a single person. And the reason I'm talking about, the primary home is because it's obviously that's a lot more well known. And, the government's talking about decreasing some of that amount that is there too. I believe we're the only country in the world that gives those amounts tax free to, that doesn't put any taxes on those profits. What I'm thinking about is that a number of people have called me that have bought a home in the last year, so they haven't owned it 2 years yet, where some of those capital gains might come in. Of course, we're not giving you CPA, investment advice here, but just basics. We're not, well, you might be a financial advisor. I'm not.
No.
So we understand the basics that we can help you around.
Yes.
So, I have somebody right now that got into a home, for example, and it really hasn't appreciated very much, which means by the time he pays the costs of selling it, he's not going to make any profit. So, I wonder there whether that might be, but a 1031 exchange, you've got to have some profit in there to make any sense of it.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
But even if you made a 50 or 100,000, it might be better not to pay the capital gains and put it, invest it in something else that's smaller, easier to deal with, rent it out to somebody else. They wanted to get out from under the mortgage, basically. We're also going to have all those people, of course, which, again, probably not going to be 1031 exchange, that are underwater. So for those of you that don't remember, 7 to 11 years is the economic cycle. That was set back in 1860 by Clément Juglar, the French economist. So nothing really is different here. 7 to 11 years is the cycle. We just crested. The last cycle was 14 years. It was even longer. So if you are going to hold a property, think about holding it for another 7 to 11 years. And if you're in, your 50s or 60s, that might seem like a long time away. Or maybe you're younger and you just don't want that kind of time frame out there where your house is probably going to be worth more than it's worth now again. But that's not going to happen for the next few years. If anything, we're going to see some decreases. So, there will be people there that go into a short sale situation. So this is not 1031 exchange advice at all, but if you find yourself in that situation, do something now. It shouldn't be an issue at all for that to roll out, but you have to talk to people. You can't stick your head in the sand. Why do I say that? Because I saw a lot of people do it last time. And once you get 2 or 3 months behind on your mortgage, then you're in trouble. There are things we can do. You can possibly rent out the house. Maybe you haven't been able to sell it, because it's not worth what you paid for it because you bought it at the height, which is just what happens in the market that we're in now as we crested around Christmas sometime. So just think about that. So, Lonnie, let's get back to 1031 exchange for anybody that's thinking about investment properties. Tell us the first steps. Is it complicated? Is it something scary?
Yeah, I think it's kind of one of those that barks worse than the bite. I mean, you just need to recognize if you're holding investment properties, it's an option for you. Typically, we make ourselves available and counsel with people all day long about the steps and process. And really, at the end of the day, it's not that difficult because we're kind of the driver behind the ship, so to speak. People call us. Really, we get involved once a buyer comes along for their investment property that they're looking to give up. We take that information, coordinate with their real estate agent, and typically if they're closing with a closing attorney or a title company, then we'll gather that information and we coordinate with then the closer, whoever it might be. And ultimately, we prepare kind of exchange agreement documents. And then at the closing, instead of the sale proceeds going to the client, we hold those proceeds to secure those in their exchange account. And then they step into their time frames to acquire the replacement property. And they have to identify the property within 45 days of closing. And they have to then complete their exchange within 180 days. They could buy one property, they could buy multiple properties, but in the end of the day, they want to reinvest typically in property that's equal or greater in value when compared to the property given up.
But it's got to be equal, or that's an important point. So let's come back to that for a second. Yeah. So if you've got an investment home that's $400,000, say, and you've been renting it out, or $200,000, say, and renting it out, or a condo, or whatever it is, you've got to invest your proceeds in something more than $200,000. So it's the total cost, not the profit, correct?
Correct. So you can deduct your closing costs, but as you mentioned, if we sold at $400,000 and we have some closing costs and you net $375,000, then all the proceeds need to be used to acquire the replacement property or properties, spending all your equity, and then if you have any debt on the property, you need to replace debt with new debt, basically.
Okay. So 400,000, they could buy 200,000 properties. Is that right?
Correct.
And it's in your 45 days. I'm interested in this one too. So the 45 days that you get, you've also had probably about 6 weeks in the closing, maybe 30 days, but closings are taking about 45 days. So really, you've got 90 days. In other words, if you put it on the market and you start looking, what happens if you identify one? Can you switch it out for a different one or not?
Right. So I tell people that we're working with, I said, be in a hurry to close if you have a replacement property picked out. If you aren't in a hurry to close because you don't have a suitable replacement property in line, then instead of taking a 30-day closing period, maybe you take a 60 or even a 90-day closing period to buy a little more time to find a replacement property. But in answer to your question is once you get past your 45-day time period, we provide the dates, we provide a form, and once you identify property and you're past your 45th day, basically the pool of properties that you're able to acquire are those that you identify on the form through the qualified intermediary. So prior to your 45th day, you can switch and change. I always say offer early, do your inspections, your due diligence, so by the time you get to your 45-day time period, you have a viable candidate that's going to be something that you're really interested in acquiring.
Got it. And, of course, you could choose a certified pre-owned property as well, which makes the whole process a whole lot smoother. So we haven't talked about this, Lonnie, but I run cpoexperts.com around the country. That is, we have 300 zip codes covered now. We need some more in California, so let your realtor friends know there. What we do is, as agents, we do the appraisal up front, we do the inspection up front, and often the sellers choose to offer a home warranty. So that doesn't mean to say that things have necessarily been fixed, because what we do is we go through and we notate the inspection report. It's usually things like, to heck with it, it was that way when we bought it, or because a lot of the things on an inspection report, there's usually 50 items on an inspection report. So those of you out there who are thinking of selling right now, who are thinking about preparing it properly for sale, that's where it only drops out 7% of the time instead of 33% of the time. And, oh, my gosh, if you're thinking about a 1031, you really... Yeah, agents don't tell you this, It's nobody wants to go in to get a listing, say, hey, by the way, these drop out about a third of the time. And then you have a stigmatized listing and everybody calls, what's wrong with it? CPO takes that out of the equation because you've got an inspection report that's all notated. The buyers can look at it before they actually go into contract. So you can put the offer in, we share the inspection report. A lot of it says won't fix, or this was this when we bought it, or this is not correct, there were actually 2 septics, whatever it is, all the explanation is on there. Or we'll fix this, this, and this. And sellers most often don't know what the issues are with the home. It's natural. Why would you? There are things that you can't see very often. So imagine a 1031 buyer, Lonnie, going for a CPO home. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, I mean, again, you want to early on identify that the property is going to be something that you're interested in acquiring. And even I suggestible is if you can, try and close as quickly as possible to get your dollars reinvested and making money for you. So, if they've planned appropriately, they'll sell, one day, and 2 weeks later they'll close on their replacement property, and they just take the 45-day time period out of play just by closing. So if you plan, and again, an astute real estate agent too is going to know with the 1031 exchange that as soon as that person has sold, they're going to have dollars to reinvest in another property. So they'll be bird dogging, the replacement property as soon as a buyer comes around.
Yes, absolutely. Another question I get a lot is for the investors who are looking to retire, get out of the real estate business altogether. And sometimes I've heard maybe exchanging it for a more passive investment, such as a triple net lease property. That's basically a triple net lease property. That's what my office is like. And I have another couple of business condos. That basically means that the tenants take care of most of the repairs and things. So there's usually a limit set on it. So anything over $1,000, they take care of. Anything under $1,000, the landlord does. But you can make that zero. So they can take care of it essentially. So that's a more, passive way to do it. Any other ideas on the people who want to exit, or they're just tired of, especially people who bought Airbnbs? I know I went to list a house the other day where the lady she realized she just didn't want to be an Airbnb host anymore. So she wanted to sell that. So it is an investment property. She has another home. Like, how do you get out? What if you want to get out altogether? So we've got the more passive income from something like a triple net lease property, a commercial property. What about any other ideas to get out, or what does that look like? Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, good question. And we do get people who give us that from time to time, and they'll explain that they're tired of changing out the sink and toilets and messing with the electrical, repairing the roof, which comes with owning real estate. And so a triple net lease product is interesting. There's what we call a DST, or a Delaware Statutory Trust, where basically you're buying a piece of a big building that's professionally managed. You get a check in the mail. And so, and we have different entities that we've worked with and sent our clients to, and they've been real happy. But we like to think of it as swapping till you drop, or swap till you drop is what we say, where if you have exchanged, and we've worked with people who've exchanged for 20 or 30 years and they keep kicking the can down the road, but if they keep the properties that they've accumulated these gains in over the years, and when they pass away and leave them for their heirs get a stepped up basis, and they could sell the property after they've passed away and not have to pay the capital gains taxes that they deferred through the 1031. So
oh, wow.
When you're inside the 1031 program, the idea is that you continue to use that program so that you don't end up, paying the tax. You don't want to get to the end and throw up your hands and say, okay, I'm out, and pay all that taxes. Hopefully you can find something that works for you as an investment and continue to hold, and then pass to your heirs, because the way the rules are today, it's beneficial. They don't end up paying the taxes that you've deferred over the years, and
wow.
They get a stepped up basis.
So this should really be, I didn't know about that piece. So this should really be something that is in estate planning, correct? If you've got any kind of property, because here's what I'm thinking. I know a lot of people in their 70s and 80s who are looking to sell their big 5-bedroom, 4-bedroom home that they've been keeping since, their 40s, when they thought their kids were going to come back from college, and now they realize they're not, and they've been in this giant house. That if they're in the right location, they could Airbnb, they could long-term rent it, make it an investment property, and presumably make it part of their estate planning, if they can afford to do that.
Yes. Yeah. Again, it's just something to keep in mind, and as you mentioned, good tax planning is always prudent. Just to understand ramifications. We get, people who call all the time, and we've dealt with this Section 1031. We're very familiar with kind of what the tax ramifications probably will be, and I always suggest, okay, we're giving you information, but really, if you want the whole picture, then go sit down with your tax advisor and look at your numbers before you make a decision.
Yeah. All I'm thinking for those people that have money in the bank, or let's say you have a $400,000-$500,000 house, maybe bigger, who knows? But you've got a house that if you've got a decent sized house, the rents are very, very competitive here. In other words, it's very hard to find a rental. We're like San Francisco. So if you're getting $3,000 or $4,000 a month in a rental, you could make that house that you're in right now an investment property, take your $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 a month as income, and still keep that within a 1031 exchange to put in your estate planning. Is that correct for your kids? I know we have to talk to a CPA for that, but does that sound feasible?
Yeah, no, you can. I mean, again, the conversion from a primary residence to investment property doesn't trigger any capital gains taxes, or vice versa. Investment, some people will acquire property in the 1031, and then a couple years down the road change their mind and maybe want to move into it. There's some maneuvering there. So I think the message is, prior to selling, understand, what your options are. understand what your capital gains might be, and and take a look around and see what maneuvers best for your investment needs.
This is so, and I'm definitely going to recommend you. So this is, introduce yourself again, Lonnie. So it's Lonnie Nielsen.
1031 Pros, and we're based out of California, but to be honest with you, we handle transactions in North Carolina, New York City, Florida, Texas, all across the United States, so on a daily basis. So
are you licensed in all the states? Can you work anywhere? Because we have people listening all over the place.
It's a federal code, and we handle transactions all across the United States.
Fantastic.
So love to, Yeah, and we answer questions for people who, they bounce questions off us all the time, and that's how it kind of begins. And so, no question is considered. We take all questions and certainly handle them and try and give feedback so people have a better understanding of the process.
Fantastic, and it's also very interesting to me because we have a lot of people coming in that want a second home. So very often they were in New York, they moved to Florida. There's even a name here. They call us halfbacks. I came from D.C., so I almost count because I went to Florida and then came here 17 years ago. Halfbacks. We made it halfway back because you go to Florida, you get tired of not having the seasons. And for me, I was in South Florida. I just got tired of South Florida. I got too old for it or something. And, the cool thing there is you're in Florida. You don't want to move right now. However, you want your home in the mountains to escape that really hot summer. So that could be something as well where a 1031 exchange could be valuable. And the home here, like what happened with me, we moved here back in 2005 and, we didn't move. We kept coming up for about 6 years before then. And then we moved into the property. So it's not an unusual thing to happen, I think. Right. So everybody's strategy is different. Everybody's situation is different. What are the most common ones? Actually, let's not do common ones. That's boring. Let's do some difficult ones you've done, Lonnie. What are the sort of ones where you've gone, wow, I haven't seen that before, even though we've done, how many transactions have you done?
18,000 exchanges. I always tell people, I said, I haven't seen... I said I've seen a lot, but I'm also doing this for 30 years. You know that you haven't kind of seen or considered everything. Trying to think, I would say, multiple properties. Sometimes people try and take, for example, 3 properties into one bigger property, and they try and time those, and those are always kind of fun. As far as like kind, we also work with mineral rights. We have some companies that sell mineral rights that can be considered like kind.
Wow,
water rights also. Water, So that's a thing. I was just down with some of the guys in they're from Texas and Oklahoma, and they have mineral rights that are considered to be real property in some or most circumstances, and so people exchange into mineral rights, and we've seen water rights that were transacted. That are considered in each state. If the state law considers water rights to be real property, those have been exchanged. And back in the day, we used to, and it doesn't apply anymore because personal property isn't exchanged, but you used to be able to, we saw airplanes that were exchanged for other airplanes. Again, that doesn't qualify as art.
Darn it.
And also, and cows. We did some cows back in the day.
Some cows?
So there you go.
What kind of cows were they? Do you remember?
Well, I don't remember, but they had to be cows, and they have to be. Each sex could be traded for. So cow could be cow, but a steer had to be traded for a steer. I believe it's been a while. So,
well,
we've seen some fun ones, but
that wouldn't be allowed these days, Lonnie.
No. Yes, I know. Yeah, probably not applicable. Hey, speaking of that, I do want to throw out to you though, and to your audience. So President Biden, and I'm not going to throw in Republican or Republican or Democrat, but President Biden has proposed that they cap 1031 exchange exclusion of gain up to $500,000. It's part of his budget. He's thrown that out there for 2 or 3 years, but it's really something that's not very pro real estate. It'll limit transactions, and it'll affect our real estate agents, closers, investors. And we're members of the Federation of Exchange Accommodators, which is a national organization of qualified intermediaries. We certainly rally with all of our real estate partners and investors. But if to your listeners, if they want to get out to their congressman and just basically they're opposed to that, any caps and any kind of restriction on 1031 exchange is not good for all of us real estate investors and people in the real estate business as a whole.
Ugh.
So we're opposed to it.
We've got enough going on right now without that coming on. Do you know anything about the cap on the gains that you can make, the profit on your house sale? What's going on with that? Because I know that was proposed too, cutting that.
Yeah, great question. To be honest, we're a trick pony, so to speak.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
And so we're up to, we get information on the 1031 exchange and certainly follow that closely and have lobbyists in Washington that meet with, the key pieces to make sure. But again, once that kind of siren goes off, all the other real estate industry kind of falls in line because we all view 1031 as beneficial to allow people to move in and out of properties. If they start getting capped or they change the 1031, it's going to stifle the sale of investment real estate and movement of investment real estate. And so we're opposed to that idea.
Well, people may not think that they're like, 500. Often we think 500,000. That's an outrageous amount of money, and none of us will, ever see that kind of profit. However, just in the scenario that we mentioned earlier, with the older couple that really just want to be single level living and have, 6 rooms and a nice little sunroom and get out of that big gigantic house that they've been carrying for years and needs maintenance and needs heat and needs cleaning and their knees don't work on the stairs anymore. If they changed that into the average price point here is $425. So, lots of houses are worth more than that, obviously. So if they put that into a 1031 exchange and that amount was capped, that's going to hurt their estate planning. That's going to change the estate planning again. So it could be for the average everyday person that's got an average everyday house that they, want to put in their estate planning for their kids, who then don't have, because people are tuning in and out every 10 minutes here, but as a primary property owner, you can take $500,000 as a couple, $250 as a single person. Biden's proposing making changes to that and reducing the amount that you can take, so we have to watch that carefully. But outside of that, if you decided to take your $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 rent a month as income and put that property that you have into a rental program, then eventually, if that 1031 exchange does get capped, that would be an issue for you as well. And that's the average everyday person.
Right, correct. I think, and that's the key is, I think it really caps you to kind of one exchange a year. And I think anything that really kind of limits the activity and the free flow of dollars from investment property to investment property, I think, again, it affects us all. Because if people perceive that they can't use a 1031 or it limits the 1031s they can use, they're just going to hold. They're not going to sell and pay the taxes. They're just going to hold.
So interesting.
The 1031 allows a free flow of dollars, and again, hopefully that's been kind of he's proposed that before, the president has, and it hasn't gone through.
Yeah.
We're hopeful it won't, but we every time it comes up, we kind of have to make sure that we're diligent in letting our congressmen know that we're opposed to that.
Absolutely. Thank you for throwing that in there. Really important point. And you just mentioned, Lonnie, limits. I'd like to come back to that. So are there any limits on how many 1031 exchanges you can do? That was another question.
There aren't. I mean, if you own 20 investment properties and decided to sell 20 in a year, you could do 20 different like-kind exchanges. There are no limits. You're able to, again, take those dollars that you would pay taxes and buy other properties. So no, we've worked with people, and it's always fun for us to see, someone's made a like-kind exchange, and 5 years later they come back and say, hey, remember we exchanged into the property. Now, this property's gone up in value. Now we're ready to go into something else. And so literally, we've worked with people for 20, 25, 30 years that have continued on and keep coming back to us. And that's always fun to kind of see, where they are and what their next plan is but no limits on the 1031 and how many you could use and how many, as far as dollars, what you can sell and get out of and invest in. So there's
Got it.
no limits today, and that's great. Yeah.
How much does it cost, Lonnie? You know, obviously we get that question. What's the range
Sure.
of costs on? And you know, we have to use an arm's length provider for this. There's a number of them in the country. We're talking to Lonnie today from 1031 Pros. They've done 18,000 exchanges. These guys know what they're doing. I wanted to get the best in the country on the show today to really give you an outline of 1031 exchanges and what it means. So what does it cost?
Yeah, so we charge a fee. We're about $1,000 when it's all said and done. About $750 on a sale, $250 on a purchase. So if you don't end up completing the exchange, you're not out the whole fee. But that's about $1,000. So usually you take a look at that compared to what you pay in taxes, and that's usually the magic.
Yes.
So usually our fee's a lot less than the taxes you'd pay, and so it makes sense. We don't have to talk people into using the process. They just see the benefits.
Yes.
So then they are interested in working with us. So it's kind of, from our perspective, just a personal perspective, it's always a business that's, fun to talk to people, because a lot of times they don't kind of understand, and then the light goes on. Wow, I'm able to keep, $50,000 I would have paid to the IRS in my pocket and reinvest it. For me, that's a great thing. And so it's not a tough sell.
Yeah, and I'm also so interested when you have companies that you mentioned before that, and this is going on all over the country, especially in the real estate boom and investments over the last 8-10 years, where they're building, these major condo complexes, apartment buildings, all kinds of things, where there are companies set up that manage those, and you can basically take part of an investment in it. Is that what you were talking about when you were saying that's the more passive income? So if you're just done, you want something easier, you don't want to handle your rental properties anymore, or commercial properties, anything you've got an investment in, you can roll that over into one of these companies. Do you recommend on any of those companies, Lonnie, or do you have a list of them that people can look at?
Yeah, a list would be better. A list of kind of providers. To be honest with you, I don't sell the product. Sometimes I'll get into the conversation and people start asking me, well, what's this and how about that and what about that? And I said, look, I know they've served our clients well. But I said, kick the tires with them and ask all the relevant questions to owning, this kind of property.
Yeah.
So we'll give names. We have kind of our, providers that we really like to work with, because they've, our clients have been happy with them. And so we just provide some names, and then they can call. Because I tell them, I said, you're getting the best information from me on the 1031s, but you're not getting the best information from me on DSCs and net. And that's because that's not something that I do on a day-to-day basis. But I have guys that can, walk you through the process and make you understand the investment to see if it works.
Well, things change all the time too. So, anything you know about a company today might be different next week or in a month. Sure. So it's always better to go direct to the company. I'm just thinking about all those people who are just tired and maybe they've got to that age where they just don't want to deal with it anymore. That sounds like a really good way as well. Maybe they've already gone that triple net route and they're just tired of that too. They're done.
Yeah.
And some of these companies offer a minimum return, I believe, as well.
Sure, and I mean, I think you have to be an accredited investor, which has a valuation limit, et cetera. And so, but the guys will walk you through it. Like I said, I tell people, here's the list, and give these guys a call, and they'll walk you through it, and they'll explain, and then you can determine if it makes sense. But for some investors, and especially investors that are kind of at the end, I would say most of the clients that we find that go that way, are interested in that kind of product, and it makes sense for them. And it just kind of depends on, for the most part, where you are in life and how much you want to take on or not.
It's very helpful. It's been great having you on the show today, Lonnie. Any final thoughts on 1031 exchanges? Anything that we've missed today, or I haven't asked you?
I don't know that we've missed, but I think we want to reiterate that, again, the concept of selling, paying taxes, and then looking around and reinvesting, just the investor who uses the 1031 is always going to be ahead, because the dollars that you would have spent in paying taxes that are reinvested for you push you ahead in your investment portfolio. So the 1031 is just it's something that needs to be part of your thought process when you're looking to sell investment property, and assuming that you want to reinvest and you don't like paying taxes, then the 1031 is a perfect fit for you.
Fantastic. And how do people get hold of you, Lonnie?
They can give us a call, 916-252-6900, easiest way to track us down. Email address, if anyone has, they can email me with questions, is info@my1031pros.com. But give us a call if you have any questions about the 1031 process. We'd love to chat and help you with the concept.
And what's your website, Lonnie?
It is my1031pros.com.
My1031pros.com. I'm glad I asked you that because I'd written down 1031 Pros. So my 1031 Pros. So if you don't want to speak to anybody this morning and you just want to put something in there, hey, give me a call or something like that, you can go to my1031pros.com. I'm sure there's a contact button on there that you can fill it in if you'd rather not talk to somebody.
Phone number, the whole bit.
Give us that phone number again, Lonnie.
916-252-6900.
Fantastic. And you work all across the states and in Guam and U.S. Virgin Islands as well?
Yep.
Fantastic.
And outside the United States if need be.
There you go. And thank you so much for getting up early in California. You're 3 hours ahead of us. So
hey, you started my day off right.
Oh, so it's only 10 till 8 there right now or something like that. 8 minutes to 8.
Correct.
Yeah, so have you had your coffee yet, Lonnie?
No, the breakfast is cooking, so we're just waiting until I finish up and then we'll eat. So,
ooh, what you having for
thank
breakfast?
Thank you, Rowena, for having us on.
Oh no, we want to know what you're having for breakfast in California now.
We got sausage and waffles coming today. A little bit heavier breakfast than normal.
Ooh, that sounds good. So hey, we're in the South. It's all good, Lonnie. That sounds fantastic. Now you're making me hungry.
Thank you very much for having us on your show. Really appreciate it. And thanks for all you do to, help us to fly right in our real estate endeavors. So really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. That's going to be my new tagline.
Okay.
Thank you. You have a great breakfast. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. We'll see you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
That was so funny. So that was Lonnie Nielsen, my1031pros.com. You can put, a note on there. Hey, I'm thinking about doing this. We're getting the wheels turning today. And really, the whole point of doing this show is to tell you things about real estate that you might not know. And sometimes I tell you over and over again, how do I know that? Because I go out to list homes. Again, it's Rowena Patton, All-Star Powerhouse, brokered by EXP. You can reach us at 828-333-4483. You see our signs all over the place. You hear us on the radio show. But I know that when I go out and I have these conversations, people will say, tell me about CPO again. I hear you talk about it every week. So let's, in our last couple of minutes, go over some things if you're thinking about selling your home right now. And, of course, now we've thrown another one in the pot with 1031 exchange. Depends what kind of home you're selling or what you want to turn it into. So here's what I want you to think about. The market's changing. Markets always change. It's normal. It's not the end of the world. We need to pick our chins up off the floor. We're hovering in the 6% range now in interest rates. Let's talk about that. We just came down a little bit. So what I want you to think about when you're purchasing is ask the seller to do a buy down. All that means, I don't want to get into the complicated jargon of it. The seller's going to put some money in the pot. It's usually up to 2% of the entire value of the home that can buy down your interest rate. You can buy it down yourself as well as a buyer, and it depends on how long generally you're going to stay in the house. If you're going to stay in 5 to 7 years, we couldn't get Cameron on this morning because we had Lonnie in from California. He was going to talk a little bit about this. So the seller buy down, the seller can do it for you. There's a thing on the contract called seller paid closing costs. You can ask for it in there where they can buy it down. Right now, for example, on a VA loan, the percentage it's staying at, you can get down into the fours, the 4% range. So there's no reason that buy down can't happen. Now, does it cost us as consumers more to do this? Of course. But that's the nature of doing business. Right now, you can get it down if you want to get that interest rate down. So as a buyer, you could be in the same range that you were in last year or the year before. So that interest rate issue then is taken off the table. Let me talk about the other big issue that's out there. People say there's not much on the market. You'll be surprised at how much is coming on the market. And we're seeing a lot more homes expire than we saw. I mean, I saw maybe one a week last year come through. Now I'm seeing them every day. So more homes are expiring. In other words, they're not selling. Another reason, guys, to do CPO. Make sure you do CPO. CPOexperts.com. I am the expert here. I do happen to run it around the country. It's from our best-selling book on selling homes. So make sure you CPO your home. I don't make you do that. Obviously, I don't waterboard you or drip water on you or whatever else is a torture mechanism, because that would be a terrible thing for an agent to do. You don't have to do CPO. You don't have to get the appraisal. You don't have to get the inspection or anything else. But it really cuts out that dropout rate, and it means everybody goes in eyes wide open. And as a seller, honestly, it saves you so much money. It makes it so much more stress-free. You don't have to fix anything. We can notate it on the inspection report. However, when that buyer sees the inspection report before they go under contract, they can choose to go forward or not. The vast majority of time they do, because guess what? Now they trust you because you've given all of that information up front. So it's a great thing to do. So the seller buy down on the interest rate, CPO your home if you have any additional finances at all. The inspection's about $475. Even just doing the inspection is a massive thing. If you do the appraisal, which is another great thing to do, it checks out all your measurements, floor plans, everything. It's not the same as a realtor CMA. There's a reason that banks don't use a realtor CMA for mortgages. They use an appraisal. But you don't have to do it, but it's a good thing to do. CPOexperts.com if you want to see any of that. Check your measurements and your baths and beds that are going out there on the internet. allstarsellers.com, allstarsellers.com. Put your address in. Make sure that what shows up is what your home is stated. Now, that sounds odd. However, often at some point in your house's history, a sun porch has been enclosed, or you've finished off a bonus room. Maybe you've finished off the basement, and that's not reflecting. So we want to address that as well and get all that tickety-boo and right. There are things you can do now, as many of you are waiting for the leaves to come on the trees, at least in the deciduous part of the country, to get prepared. So go to allstarsellers.com, allstarsellers.com, throw your address in, get your value. It's the best automated value machine out there, and it still ain't great because often the information's wrong. Of course, I'll be happy to come out to your house. I do it all the time. Go out, take a look, talk to you about anything that may or may not need doing. I am the girl that usually tells you not to do a lot because we're in a flat market. You want to get out there now. There's not much inventory. You'll sell it. So let's talk about not being able to find a place. Not a problem. We get you seller possession after closing. You close on your house, you put money in your pocket. 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. That's the biggest question I get when I go into somebody's home. Where am I going to go? How am I going to buy myself some time? That's how we do it. Many buyers have been looking for a long time. They will give you that extra time because they want your house, because there's so few houses out there right now. So that works on both sides, and it gets everything moving again. Just like I-26, when there's a big accident, everything comes along and eventually it gets moving again. So interest rates, buy them down. Make sure you CPO your home, cpoexperts.com, to see what that's all about if you're not sure about it. And do seller possession after closing. There's your big 3 tips for this week. Thanks for listening today, guys. If you've got any questions, mountainhomehunt.com, mountainhomehunt.com. Click on Contact Us, 828-333-4483 to give us a call. Rowena Patton, I'll see you on the radio next week.
This has been the Plain English Real Estate Show with Rowena Patton. Visit Rowena and post your questions at radioasheville.com or call her at 828-210-1648.